You won't see them coming, not because they're hiding, but because you're not programmed to look. The human mind filters the world automatically. It notices threats, tracks patterns, and remembers faces that don't belong. But what if someone understood that filter better than you do? What if they learned how to move through the gaps in your attention, dress like you, speaking like you, blending seamlessly into the background noise of everyday life? The most dangerous operators aren't the ones in black masks or tactical gear. They're the ones you'd walk past in a coffee shop, the ones you'd hold a door for, the ones you'd never remember 5 minutes later. Because invisibility isn't about being unseen. It's about being seen and dismissed. Your brain does the rest. It fills in the blanks, creates a story, and decides they're harmless. And by the time you realize they were there, it's already over. Most people think power looks like force, uniforms, badges, weapons, authority that announces itself. But that isn't power. It's theater. Real power doesn't need a stage. When you walk into a room in uniform, people adjust. They guard their words, measure their behavior, and close ranks. In that moment, you've already lost the advantage because they know you're there. But when you walk in as nobody, you become background, furniture, safe, forgettable. People relax. They talk freely. They make mistakes. Visibility creates resistance. Invisibility creates opportunity. This is the paradox most intelligence agencies never solve. They want recognition. They want their enemies to know who broke them. But fear makes people hide, and comfort makes people talk. One organization understood this earlier than anyone else, not as a trick, not as a tactic, but as a way of thinking. Your brain is a threat detection machine. It evolved to spot danger, the predator in tall grass, the stranger with wrong intentions, the face that doesn't fit. But that same system has a blind spot. Familiarity. When something looks normal, your defenses lower. When someone seems like they belong, you don't question them. When a pattern repeats without incident, you stop checking. This is how invisibility works, not by avoiding attention, but by controlling it. The operative, who looks like a tourist, doesn't trigger alarm. The person in business attire blends into the corporate landscape. The accent that matches yours creates instant trust. You're not being fooled. You're being understood. Because the human mind doesn't catalog everything. It shortcuts. It assumes. It trusts what feels familiar. Threats trigger resistance. Familiarity triggers trust. And trust opens doors that force never could. This wasn't discovered by accident. It was studied, refined, institutionalized. What began as survival became doctrine. They don't teach you to blend in. They teach you to be forgettable. There's a difference. Blending in means matching the environment. Being forgettable means leaving no impression at all. No distinctive walk. No memorable phrases. No habits that form patterns someone could recall later. You dress one shade duller than everyone else. You speak at the exact volume of the room. You make eye contact that's polite, but never piercing. Your face should invite no second glance. Your presence should register as background noise. If someone remembers you after the operation, you failed. Because the goal isn't to disappear in the moment, it's to vanish from memory afterward. Success is measured by nothing happening. No alarms, no questions, no follow-ups. You were there. You moved through the space. You collected what you needed. And when security reviews the footage, they scroll right past you. Because your presence triggered no instinct, no suspicion, no flag. This requires constant self-suppression. Every impulse to stand out, to be acknowledged, to matter, erased. You become a human blank space, and you stay that way until the work is done. The janitor hears the executive call. The IT technician sees every screen. The administrative assistant schedules meetings no one else even knows exist. These aren't positions of power. That's exactly why they work. People talk freely around service staff. They forget who's in the room when someone is fixing the printer or refilling coffee. They discuss sensitive information in front of the person they've subconsciously dismissed. Not because they're careless, because hierarchy creates blind spots. Authority watches equals and threats. It doesn't catalog the assistant, the clerk, the contractor, and that's the access point. No. Forced entry, no confrontation, no deception, just patience, just routine. Show up consistently. Do the job well. Become part of the landscape, then listen. Information doesn't leak under pressure. It leaks through comfort. The most valuable doors don't look guarded. You stop recognizing yourself after a while, not physically, psychologically. Every operation requires you to suppress who you are, your opinions, reactions, instincts. You become whoever the mission needs. And when it's over, you don't simply switch back, because there's no acknowledgement, no public success, no moment where someone says your name and records what you did. You were never there. So who are you? Your victories remain classified. Your failures vanish with you. The moments that mattered most never become stories. You watch events unfold on the news, events you shaped, and you say nothing. You can't explain why you were gone. Can't tell your family what it cost. Can't even admit to yourself how much of you disappeared along the way. The discipline isn't physical. It's ego death. Choosing to be forgotten. Choosing silence. Choosing to erase yourself from the narrative while others take credit. Most people can't sustain it, but those who can are changed permanently. The doctrine doesn't just shape missions. It reshapes the person. The most effective operative isn't on a 2-week mission. They've been in place for 2 years, living a normal life, paying rent, going to work, building relationships that feel organic, because they are just directed. The cover isn't a disguise. It's a fully functioning identity. They're not pretending to be the accountant at the logistics firm. They are the accountant. They do the job. They do it well. They become trusted. And over time, access appears. Not through hacking, not through forced entry, through presence. Being there when the conversation happens, when the document is left on the desk, when someone casually mentions a shipment route they shouldn't. No drama, no close calls, just consistency. Because long-term invisibility beats short-term action every time. The operation that makes headlines is the one that failed to stay quiet. The successful operation is the one you never hear about. A threat neutralized before it formed. A transaction that never completed. A meeting postponed until it no longer mattered. Nothing happened. That was the success. Security systems are designed to catch anomalies, the breach, the intrusion, the suspicious behavior. They aren't designed to notice the person who's been there all along. And that's the gap invisibility exploits. Right now, someone could be living next door, working in your building, sitting in your coffee shop. You wouldn't know, because the most effective operations never make headlines. And invisibility works precisely because the public never knows what didn't happen. You can't defend against what you don't perceive. That's the asymmetry. Traditional security is reactive. It watches for threats. It flags suspicious behavior. It responds to anomalies. But what if there is no anomaly? What if the threat looks exactly like everyone else? Security cameras record them. Background checks clear them. Their behavior triggers no alerts because it's completely normal. They're not bypassing the system. They're moving through it. That's why invisibility creates an advantage no amount of force can counter. Power structures prepare for attacks, for confrontation, for visible enemies making visible moves. They don't prepare for familiarity. The real danger isn't the person acting suspicious. It's the person who isn't, and attention is finite. When security focuses on the obvious threat, the invisible one moves freely. When intelligence agencies chase loud operations, quiet ones succeed. Misdirected attention is more powerful than any weapon. Because once you control where someone looks, you control what they don't see. Loud intelligence creates spectacle. It announces capability. It warns enemies. Silent intelligence shapes outcomes. By the time the opponent realizes what happened, the conditions have already changed. The asset is compromised. The advantage is gone. And they never saw it coming. because escalation becomes unnecessary when you can shape events. Before conflict ever begins, the most dangerous power isn't the one that threatens, it's the one that's already inside. At this point, invisibility stops being a tactic. It becomes a philosophy. It shapes recruitment, training, decision-making at the highest levels. Anonymity isn't a weakness to overcome. It's a strength to protect. When an agency stays out of the headlines, its operatives stay safer. When methods remain unknown, enemies can adapt. When successes go uncredited, capabilities stay underestimated, and underestimation is strategic. Let others believe you're smaller than you are, less capable, less present. They lower their guard. They stop checking. They make the mistakes you're waiting for. This is why restraint can be more powerful than force. Force announces itself. It creates resistance. It triggers response. It burns assets and reveals methods. Restraint preserves options. It keeps you invisible, positioned, ready, not for the operation happening now, but for the one that might matter 3 years from now. And this philosophy doesn't stop at intelligence work. It applies to power itself. In any domain where perception shapes reality, invisibility becomes leverage. The company that never announces its next move, the negotiator who reveals nothing, the strategist who lets silence do the work. They all understand the same truth. The most dangerous player at the table isn't the one making threats. It's the one you forgot was there. Counterintelligence agencies spend billions hunting anomalies, surveillance systems, behavioral algorithms, biometric databases, AI pattern recognition. They catch unusual logins, irregular travel patterns, unexpected contacts, deviations from baseline behavior. But invisibility leaves no anomaly. The operative has been in the building for 18 months. Every action matches the routine. Every behavior mirrors the norm. Every detail studied and replicated. The system sees them every day and dismisses them every day. Background checks pass. Security badges work. Audit trails show. Nothing irregular. The threat isn't the person acting strangely. It's the person acting completely normal while pursuing a different objective. Cameras record them. Logs document them. Databases store their activity. It doesn't matter. Nothing triggers suspicion. This is the blind spot. Security assumes threats reveal themselves. Infiltration leaves traces. Deception slips. Not here. Not with invisibility. The longer you're in place, the more normal you seem. The more trusted, the more overlooked the paradox, the more sophisticated the security system, the more powerful invisibility becomes. You're not defeating the system. You're passing its test every single day. The doctrine isn't outdated. It's more powerful than ever. Today, access matters more than borders. Contractors rotate through defense companies. Consultants embed in government agencies. Remote workers join video calls from anywhere. Freelancers get temporary credentials. Nobody questions it. Nobody notices. That's the advantage. The job posting is real. The interview is normal. References check out. And suddenly the operative is inside, not as an intruder, as an employee. They attend meetings, read emails, access shared drives, understand relationships, all while doing the job well enough no one questions them. Diplomatic functions, trade conferences, academic collaborations, shared workspaces, hotel business centers, perfect environments for someone trained to be invisible. The person sitting across from you in a cafe with a laptop could be an operative. You never know. Not everyone can do this work. It's not about intelligence or strength or courage. It's about ego, or rather, the absence of it. The best operatives aren't charismatic, not confident, not authoritative. Those traits get you noticed, and noticed is failure. This work selects for patience, emotional control, memory, restraint, comfort with being unremarkable. Most fail. They want recognition. They need to stand out. They can't turn it off. The ones who succeed are quiet, consistent, unremarkable. on paper, unimpressive. They can disappear into a role for months, years, without validation. They measure value by what didn't happen, not what did. You can't live two lives forever without losing one. The cover becomes reality. Relationships feel real. Routines feel real. But they vanish when the mission ends. Friendships fade. Trust disappears. The person people knew, gone. You can't explain why. You can't stay in touch. You just disappear. Do it enough times, and something inside erodes, quietly. Attachments fade. Self-expression vanishes. You become a ghost at home, while another identity performs in the field. The successes that mattered most, the missions that prevented catastrophe, remain classified forever. Invisibility doesn't end when the operation ends. It becomes permanent. The doctrine demands a sacrifice that cannot be returned. You gave your identity, and they can't give it back. Technology evolves. Politics shift. Warfare changes. But human psychology stays the same. Facial recognition, encryption, AI analysis, none of it matters if the threat looks normal. Systems defend against imagined attacks. Invisibility exploits assumptions. Repetition breeds trust. Authority overlooks those it considers beneath notice. These aren't vulnerabilities. They're features of human consciousness. The doctrine doesn't compete with technology. It ignores it. By the time you ask, who's dangerous? Invisibility has already won. The question isn't who is a threat. It's who did I stop noticing? Invisibility isn't just a spy tactic. It's everywhere. Business, power, daily life. The executive assistant who quietly controls access. The middleman everyone underestimates. The quiet person who says little but remembers everything. Visibility creates resistance. Invisibility creates access. Think about who you overlook. The person making your coffee. The cleaner in your office. The contractor on site for months. How much do they see? How much do they hear? Who do you trust? Not because of scrutiny, but because they've been around long enough to feel safe. That's the gap, the one invisibility walks through. The doctrine teaches the most powerful position is the one nobody is watching. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll start noticing people you never noticed. They hear everything. They say a little. They could be exactly who they appear to be, or not. You'll never know. And that's the point. If this analysis was valuable, comment below. Which intelligence doctrine or agency should we explore next?